All right, friends, this year, the word of the year has been given to us by Holy Mother Church. Hey, I am Father Mark May with Franciscan Friars of the Renewal, and this is Ascension Presents. I like the practice of having a word of the year. Last year's word of the year was confidence, based off of a line of St. Therese, and I think it's a really good practice. You can still have your own particular word of the year, but in a real sense, for all of the church, we've been given the same word of the year, and the word is hope. And the reason I'm saying this is that the year 2025 is a Jubilee year. And we're going to explain a little bit of a Jubilee year and what it is and how to celebrate it and to sort of commemorate, to kick off, to announce, proclaim the Jubilee year. Our Holy Father, Pope Francis, put out a papal bull which called it like a year of hope, essentially, that we're going to be pilgrims of hope, and that we keep hope before us. And if you want to really enter into that theme, you can do so by first checking out that papal bull, which proclaims this Jubilee year of hope. So I think that's a really good place to go, and something we definitely want to do this year. To back up for a second, let's look at a little bit of like, what the heck is a Jubilee year? If you're not really sure, join the club. I'm just learning about it. These days, a Jubilee year, like an ordinary Jubilee year, it's going to happen about every 25 years. We did have an extraordinary Jubilee year, which was the Year of Mercy, which broke the pattern. But that doesn't happen all the time, and there's a reason we call it extraordinary. Ordinarily, these days, it's something that happens every 25 years. It's a particular year of grace. It's a particular year of prayer. And also, like, with it is this invitation to a pilgrimage to Rome, to go into the doors of the Basilica and to receive the indulgence. And so if you are able to make this pilgrimage, you want to learn more about that, you can just look up like the Jubilee year. This idea of the Jubilee year, in some sense, like more approximately, goes back to the year like 1300s. But its roots go even further back. And its roots go back to the Old Testament. And I think for us who want to enter into and to really, really receive the graces being offered to us in this Jubilee year, like what we can do, I think we can base it off of like what was happening historically in the Old Testament when there was a Jubilee year. So in a Jubilee year, all debts would be forgiven. So that's one thing. In a Jubilee year, all slaves would be set free. In a Jubilee year, everyone would return home. So if you'd been traveling for different reasons or for work, like you would go back home. And then fourth, it was a year of rest. Like the people and the land would be allowed to rest. So I do think, while it might look a little bit different, we could take inspiration from these traditional Old Testament roots of what we would do on a Jubilee year. So for most of us, I think like the debts that we want to forgive or we want to have like there be reconciliation are those which are interpersonal. So this is a great year for us to really ask for the grace and to really work to forgive those who have hurt us. Also, if we have hurt other people, it's a great year for us to reach out to them and again, to show some sign of repentance, asking for forgiveness, asking for our own debts to be forgiven. So like number one thing I think is to forgive and to ask for forgiveness, or we need to do that. Number two, the slaves were set free. Certainly we can look at this the spiritual sense of like, okay, like if there's any place in our lives which is enslaved to sin, we want to really work to grow in freedom there. That's one thing. But I think probably a more kind of appropriate response and understanding of this would be like different works of mercy. To let the slaves free was to let those who were oppressed, like those who were poor, to be given freedom to care for them. And so a particular attention to works of mercy, whatever those might be. Again, the easiest one might be to get out your phone and to call somebody who you know who's lonely, to look to volunteer with some sort of soup kitchen, homeless shelter, juvenile detention center, and prison ministry, visiting those who are elderly in kind of retirement centers, etc. That's really, really in line with the traditional celebration of a Jubilee year. It's also something that our Holy Father asked for in his papal bull for this year. Thirdly, everybody would go home. And again, I think this is really beautiful as people are spread out, particularly working, and there's going to be some time of rest, and so people would go back home. They'd make the journey to be back with their family, their community. Yeah, certainly, again, if we want to look at it a little bit more literally, this can be a great time to reconnect with family, to really prioritize that, to create space for it, if we haven't done a great job at being with family. I do also think that maybe spiritually, this is a great way to look at like any ways in which we have become aliens to ourselves, in which we have gone off to foreign lands, particularly with like our time and attention. And I think one of those ways in which we have gone into exile is the overuse, certainly, of a variety of media, of entertainment, of the podcasts, of YouTube videos, of social media, where we can really kind of go spend a lot of time there, and in doing so, just not be present, not be at home in our own sort of communities and families. And so I just really encourage a prayerful discernment about that. And then lastly, it's a year of rest. And what that's going to look like, there's a lot of space for discernment. We're not going to go the full way of like, okay, we're not going to work anymore. And that just hasn't been the Christian tradition of a Jubilee year. But I do think like some stepping back, some creating of space of rest. And maybe it's like, you're grinding and growing, and this is like you just want to keep kind of like grinding and growing with your work. And to rest, like, it might be impractical. It might not have the best worldly wisdom. But if you pray about it and discern it, and if you really feel like this is an invitation from the Lord, like, it's also going to just be an invitation to trust. All right, I'm just going to take a step back. I'm not going to be doing everything possible. Maybe I don't take on any new things. Maybe that's your practice. Maybe I step back from some non-essentials, etc. Like, whatever it is, like, we want what underlies this to be in obedience, like listening to God, but also like this foundation, this spirit of trust. Okay, Lord, I'm not just gonna like come about this life, this world, like self-reliant. I'm gonna trust you. And I really do encourage us, like, it happens every 25 years. Most of us who are, watching this video, maybe 25 years ago, weren't very serious practicing Catholics. Maybe we weren't even born yet. And maybe like just wasn't on our radar. But we don't get this a lot. And I do think it's a particular sacred time and a year of grace. And that there is going to be particular graces, I think, particularly for these 4 areas, and in like, what the Holy Father offers us in the year of hope here, and being pilgrims of hope. So 2025, like, let's do it. Let's receive the graces. Let's receive the hope that we all need. And let this Jubilee year be a year that we celebrate joyfully, well with the Lord. Get some renewal, get some rest, go home, forgive some debts, be forgiven our debts, and let the slaves go free, and that we care for those most vulnerable in our communities and our lives. All right, friends, thank you for joining me today. I look forward to being with you again next week. Remember, we are pilgrims on this earth, somos peregrinos poco a poco, little by little. Vamos a llegar. We're going to make it. God bless y'all.